What's going on, everyone? Today we're going to be talking about Parasyte. This is one that has been on my list for so many years, and I don't know why, but I've owned the limited box sets and I just never got around to it. I don't know if it was just because I was thrown off by the images on, the character designs at first, or if it was just, horror is not exactly my forte for anime genres. But this one is definitely an exception. I started this one with a blind eye, didn't know anything about it, and by the end of it, I was like shocked, and I'm really sad that it ended. But the ending was fantastic, and it ended how it should have ended. So I have absolutely zero complaints about that. So, where do we start off with this one? Well, in the beginning, we have our MC, Shinichi Izumi, and he's kind of a, what's the right word for it? He's kind of like a loser, I guess. He's shy, timid, loves his parents, which isn't losery, but he's good at school. Nothing ever goes wrong with him, and he's got some friends like Satomi and the other kind of minor two girls that are kind of always around, but doesn't really matter that much. And he just kind of goes through his normal life until one day these parasitic creatures come and actually take over human bodies. Because so what the parasite's actual thing is they come in and they're supposed to attach to the brain, which takes over the human body and whatever, or whatever ligament it ends up taking over. And from there on, the human body is no longer anything. So if like you kill the parasite, the body's dead, or the ligament's dead, or whatever specifically. And Shinichi ends up getting one in his arm, and it isn't able to spread to his brain. And he ends up naming that one Migi, which your right hand, yeah. And throughout all that, they kind of go through a bunch of like tribulations and trials, and a lot of things happen. And I don't want to get too much into detail because I also don't want to make a spoiler video. But oh man, this story had so much to offer for it. We've got characters that come and go. We got our first, I guess, main villain of this story is a character, and her name is Ryuko, and she's a teacher that teaches at the school, but we come to find out that she's actually a parasite. And obviously Shinichi hates her guts because he has this thing out for parasites right off the bat that they need to be relinquished, even though his right arm is now a parasite, and if Migi were to leave, he'd lose his right arm. But the thing is, there is actually lots of murders happening because of these parasites, and obviously the humans want to stop, especially like Shinichi, because he has the ability to stop them with all the power he's got with this right arm. But, she wants to keep him alive because he's a rarity, and none of the parasites have taken over any ligaments besides, the brain. And she keeps him alive, and, we don't really hear much from her for a while, except for the fact that she kind of has this partner with her, and I don't remember his name because I think it was A. He wasn't around very long. He doesn't really care about Shinichi. He just knows he wants him dead, so he kind of comes to the school to try to like kill him, and it doesn't work. And Ryuko ends up trapping him around after Shinichi and him get a fight and blowing him up, so he's out of the picture, and she leaves because her identity's ruined at the school. And while that's all going on, we've got this girl named Kana who is friends with these like assholes who kind of come and go throughout the series, and they're picking on one of the kind of side character friends, and obviously Shinichi comes and tries to save him, and it to no non extent he does get his shit rocked, but Kana starts to get interested in it because she has like this telepathic ability to notice the parasites, it's pretty neat, like they do really well with that. And I was rooting so hard for her because at this point in the series, nothing like really detrimental per se had happened. And oh man, it destroyed my heart. So he goes through lots of tribulations after the school incident per se. I mean, we get attached to Kana, and she's just in love with him for some reason. While that's all happening, she ends up croaking, and his mom croaks. Pretty much any character that you like fall in love with in this series, more than likely is going to pass away, but for good reason every single time, and you can't go wrong with it. It has an act. I mean, like even like the lessons in it are really amazing overall, and the action scenes are fantastic. Honestly, I ended up coming around for Satomi, the main love interest that ends up being with him at the end. I actually ended up falling in love with her. She is a pretty great character. She's not despicable and despisable, but I still would have rather preferred Kana. So, with that being said, we've got, I guess, the main drive towards the end of the series that also really plucked me in is by this point, Migi's like in your heart. And when his scene where his mom ends up killing him, or not his mom ends up killing him, but the scene where his mom shows up because when his mom and dad end up going on vacation, mom gets murdered by one of them. So obviously, he's not in a good state of mind because his dad ends up calling him to let him know that his mom's passed because of this. So we had kind of a heads up, and when they get there, Migi detects that it's not his mom, and he's at this rough stage of life, and the mother parasite stabs him through the heart and leaves. So then Migi, obviously, if Shinichi dies, Migi dies. So he heals him up. It takes a few days. He's weak, but now Shinichi's got all these like extensive powers, which kind of brings us to like the latter half of the series, where Ryoko ends up getting pregnant with that one guy that got killed's baby to kind of like experiment on it. And she's kind of with this guild now with the big head honcho villain, Goto, and they start like running for like mayor and political lineups. And we do meet through along the way this little like main or like sub character named Mamaru. He's got the same thing that Shinichi does, where his parasite didn't link up with him the right way. So they kind of like bounce off each other a little bit in the series. Nothing like really like crazy a lot, but enough to like, I guess, matter. And I believe, I'm trying to think of his name for his one was, but I don't exactly remember. Maybe it was, I want to say Joe, but not too important. But anyways, Ryoko is working with that Gotoro, and she knows he's really powerful because that was one of her experiments actually. So they kind of like split ways, and while they split ways, three of like the lackeys try actually killing Ryoko, and it doesn't work. She murders all of them senselessly. And while that's going on, she tells Shinichi that she needs to meet up with him, and they meet up at the park. And she's already had her baby at this point, kind of living life vicariously. And they meet up, and he's like freaking out because the government has like kind of infiltrated everything, but they don't know that Shinichi is like a parasite or anything. But at this point in the story, like Migi and Ryoko, but mostly like Ryoko, have kind of like come to this conclusion because these parasites learn and learn and learn. And honestly, Ryoko is like the first woke one. You kind of like in the beginning kind of despise her as like a villain, but you come to love her. And that's an aspect that I think is so beautifully well done in this series. because she comes to realize, like, she laughs and she cries, and all of these emotions that the parasites aren't even supposed to have. But she gives Shinichi the baby and then just dies after. I mean, the detectives did shoot her, but she was blocking all the bullets so it didn't hit the baby. And even Migi was like, why isn't she stopping these? And it was all for the baby. Like, she come to grasp humanity. And the kind of like the final little arc, like I said, I don't want to spoil too much, but I guess I really am. Um, is this arc where, like, obviously the detectives are taking care of things, so we meet this guy named Urogami, who ends up being kind of like an essential thing towards the end of like the last episode of the series. But he's like this guy that can apparently like sense if they are too, because he's like a serial killer murderer that's been doing this for who knows how long, and he got just kind of put in the wrong place at the wrong time after these parasites were feasting at this, because like I said, they were trying to take over the government, so this parking ramp is like 100% parasites. And they just made him like a legitimate, like, famous Dave's grill in that parking ramp. And so he got caught, and this is this guy, I'm trying to think of his name, but he's head of like the security or like the action force of that era, and they kind of suspect Shinichi to be part like of a parasite, but they have like no physical proof, and he also has like all obviously the human aspects besides like the physical strength and like the whole scar through his chest. But they can't prove it, so like they go in and they just get slaughtered by Goto, slaughtered completely. And that kind of leads to the, like I said, the final arc where Saitome and Shinichi kind of like get their love going on and like really establish it. And Goto, they get, it's like his last like Shinichi's last thing, because obviously, like I said, his mother died. Another girl that he didn't exactly like, but they were friends and like she liked him, died. And then he had like this hole in his heart and he had no emotion. So like when Ryoko died, a fortune teller earlier said, you know, your mother's gonna fix that hole in your heart, or somebody that you love deeply, if I remember correctly. And she actually transforms into his mom when she's getting shot at, to get his attention so that he'll listen. So it's like his mom actually filled the hole in his heart. So now he's just figuring out the gaps. And we meet another like elderly individual in a village while he's running from Goto, because they decide to fight him because there's no way they could win physically, but they fight anyways. And sadly, Migi separates from him and tries to stop him to save him. And so he's got no arm, and he stops at this old lady's house, and she takes care of him for a few days and feeds him, and they talk, and she almost like takes him in, but he's like, I gotta go beat this guy. And she's like, you don't have to fight, you can run. He's like, no, I have to do this. So he goes to take on Goto, and he does really good for him being just a human at this point. But he's pretty much getting his ass handed to him. He's in the dump, being ready just to get his head sliced off, but he takes this like piece of bar, like it almost looked to me personally like a crowbar, but I couldn't tell you. And it's just like infected with just chemicals, just nasty, just dumped chemicals, and stabs him in his weak spot and weakens him. And we come to find out that Migi actually bonded with him so he could survive. And this is when like the morals of like the back plot, besides the amazing character development and just character writing in general, besides all of that and like and how well it flows the action, we get this like undertoning life like lesson inside of the series, which is just totally amazing on top of everything else that we've got. And like I said, I won't spoil like the last ending part of it, and I kind of just went through like the linear notes in just a random sloppy order. But the moral of the story is like we find out that these like parasites come to Earth, and we just immediately want to eradicate them. And long story short, we're the parasites. We do everything, even like saving the environment or reducing plastic, is just so that us humans can survive another day. And it doesn't matter about any other animal what happens as long as we can live another day. And that's all the parasites were trying to do as well, was just trying to live another day. So it's like kind of like that whole, we're selfish, and like if some other animal needs this, we won't do it. We only think for ourselves, and we're tearing the world apart. And it's a really cool message, along with, like I said earlier, and I'll repeat it multiple times, the excellent flow of path. Oh, did I mention that soundtrack? Such a great soundtrack. And I'm very happy that Limited came with the soundtrack as well. But the soundtrack was even great, and the action scenes were great. Plenty of blood. Only gripe I really had with the animation was every now and then the background characters with this really kind of chintzy CGI, but I don't care. I'm not super stickler about it. And then we had, characters that were lovable and changed, and directedly, they did freaking fantastic. I loved it to death. I would recommend this anime to anyone, because, man, like it classifies it as like an action or horror, psychological, but in my opinion, it's definitely psychological sci-fi with gore and action. I don't necessarily feel the horror aspects, except for maybe, an alien parasite coming to take over the whole world. But other than that, I didn't feel it too much. But dang, I gave this a solid 9 out of 10. And I don't give 9s and 10s out very often. I kind of, for the most part, do like a 5 through 10 scale on there. I've never really described this to everybody, but I mostly do like a 5 through 10 scale. Because I'm going to say it's 1 through 10. We don't get half ratings. And if I finish something all the way through without dropping it, it's pretty much an automatic 5. There's a few exceptions that are lower. But no matter what, if you can keep my attention that long, you pretty much get a 5. But yeah, this is a 9. And for real, the pitch might have been the best I gave, but you have to give it a shot if you have not seen this. I couldn't stress enough. And if you have seen it and you have like any like even recommendations for me or just comments about this series, comment down below in the comment section. Let's get some discussion going. But with that being said and done, I'm really glad y'all stuck around, and I really hope that was at least enough to like kind of get your gears a rolling to watch it. And with that being all said and done, thanks for watching. If you made it this far, have a good night, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.